For this video, I'm going to cover topic 15, A2, control and coordination in plants. In this topic, actually, you're going to learn about two hormones. One is on auxin and the other one is on gibberellin. And gibberellin, actually, they have two roles. They are involved in germination of wheat and barley, and is also involved in stem elongation. But for this video, I'm going to focus on the role of gibberellin in germination. Before we start with the process of germination, let's look at the structure of a grain. So for a typical grain, the outermost layer is known as a testa, or sometimes also known as the fruit coat. This is the part that makes your seed difficult to digest, which it will form the fiber, and the inner layer will be known as the aileron layer. This is the layer where it's acting as a protein storage. And the innermost layer, which is occupying the major part of the seed, will be known as the endosperm. So this is the part that acts as a starch storage. As for part C, this is the only living part of the seed, where it is known as the embryo. Within the embryo, you will be able to see the embryonic shoot, sometimes also known as the plumule, and the embryonic root, also known as the radicle. Also known as the radicle. So what are the requirements for germination? Number one, we know that for germination to take place, it requires water. Number two, oxygen is needed for respiration. So ATP can be produced for the process of germination. And number three, we need warm temperature. So what is the chemical messenger that actually stimulates the process of germination? So in this case, water is one of the main stimulants that actually trigger the production of signaling molecule known as the hormone gibberellin, and the process of germination will begin. So as we know that germination requires energy, so where does the seed get the energy from? Still remember here, in the endosperm, there's actually starch. So what needs to take place is an enzyme that breaks down the starch need to be produced in order to break down starch into glucose. Then the glucose will be converted to ATP through the process of aerobic respiration. So let's see how this process can take place. Okay, so number one, we're going to start with water is being absorbed by the embryo. So when the embryo is stimulated, the embryo will start to produce hormone gibberellin. In short, gibberellin is also known as GA. And the GA will actually travel into the aileron layer. So what is actually happening within this aileron layer? So I'm going to relate a bit to the regulation of gene expression, but we're going to go into the detail in chapter 16, where we know that when the plant is actually in a dormant state, or when a seed is not germinating, there's actually a repressor protein that actually blocks the gene expression. And this repressor protein is known as DELA. So when they are being triggered to actually start transcription, repressor protein DELA will be stimulated to be broken down, Therefore, the gene that codes for amylase enzyme will be triggered. And this is due to the PIF, known as a transcription factor, will bind to the promoter of a gene, which triggers transcription. This marking point that I've just mentioned is actually not part of the answer for the structured question that we're going to discuss later, because this is more like how the gene is being controlled and regulated. But for essay, we can actually bring this in order to further elaborate on the cell signaling process, whereby we're going to talk about how when hormones, which is a signaling molecule, binds the receptor on the aileron layer, it will actually trigger a series of reaction. So what is the purpose of the process of transcription? What is the gene that's being transcribed? So within this, we know that it's actually protein storage. So protein will be broken down into amino acid, and the amino acid is used for the synthesis of enzyme amylase. So remember, what is the role of amylase? So amylase is the enzyme that is used to break down starch. So this is step 4. And step 5, the amylase enzyme will be transported into the endosperm. And this is where the starch within the endosperm will be broken down into maltose. And maltose will be further broken down into glucose. And glucose will diffuse into the embryo, and it will be used in respiration to produce ATP. And that's where ATP is used for growth. For this structured question, since they just need you to refer to the 3 numbered arrows, so we are going to describe the process with reference to the arrow. Therefore, some of the details we are not going to include unless you come across an essay question, then you will be able to use all the points. So number 1, what is actually happening? When the embryo absorbs water, the embryo will produce and releases gibberellin. So as gibberellin, I'll just put GA in short. The GA will move into the aileron layer. So if it's for essay, you can mention that the GA will bind to the receptor on the aileron layer cells and trigger a series of reaction, resulting in GA stimulating the production of amylase. So that's the process or events that's taking place. For step 2, we see that something is moving into the endosperm. So it's actually referring to the enzyme amylase that is being synthesized is moving into the endosperm. So in exam, if you fail to label part B, so what you can do is you at least mention that the amylase can move into layer B or the section B. So at least the examiner knows that you are actually following through the process and you're answering the question. So what is the role of the amylase? Amylase will break down starch to maltose, and maltose is broken down into glucose, and glucose will move into embryo. So what is the role of the glucose? So this will be step 3. The glucose is used in respiration, to release ATP for the process of germination, also known as growth. For more details and understanding for the role of other hormones, do join my group or private tuition. Thanks for watching.
That's all for today's video. If you're interested in more genuine sharing by other geniuses, please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to turn on the notification bell, ding dong. Also, if you're struggling with 1 or 2 past year questions and the mark scheme just doesn't seem to help, Genie has got you covered. Feel free to let us know what question it is by filling in the Google form linked in the description below. GenieUs Hub will get genius teachers to fulfill your request for the solution. Genie will see you next time. Bye-bye.